weary tract of country, and at length found myself, as the shades of the evening drew on, within view of the melancholic house of Usher. I know not what it was, but with the first glimpse of the building, an insufferable sense of gloom pervaded my spirit. I looked upon the scene before me, upon the mere house. What was it that so unnerved me in the contemplation of the house of Usher? Its proprietor, Roderick Usher, had been my companion in boyhood, though many years had elapsed since our last meeting. A letter, however, had lately reached me in a distant part of the country. A letter from him. He spoke of acute bodily illness, of a mental disorder which oppressed him, and of an earnest desire to see me, his only personal friend. As I pondered these things, I crossed the short causeway to the mansion. A valet of stealthy step thence conducted me in silence through the many dark and intricate passageways adorned with somber tapestries along the walls, the carvings in the ceilings within my progression to the personal chambers of Roderick Usher. The room in which I found myself in was very large and lofty. The windows were long, narrow, and pointed, and at so vast a distance from the dark oaken floor as to be altogether inaccessible from within. Dark draperies hung along the walls. The general furniture was profuse, comfortless, antique, and tattered. Many books and musical instruments lay scattered about the ground, but failed to bring any vitality to the scene. I felt as if I breathed forth an air of sorrow. Upon my entrance, Usher arose from a sofa at which he had been lying at full length, and greeted me with a vivacious warmth, which I at first thought of as to be an overdone cordiality, but his complexion was cadaverous, and he was a more shadowy version of the man I once knew. His silken hair, more web-like than I remembered, now clung to his temples, and his voice was unsteady, as if he feared to trust his own senses. The conditions of the atmosphere around this house have molded the destinies of my family, he said, his voice trembling. There is an influence, a curse, one which no mortal can escape. Do you not feel it, my friend? Do you not sense the decay that pervades the air? I tried to offer comfort, but his words carried a disquieting truth. The whole mansion, from its foundation to its crumbling turrets, breathed forth an air of sorrow. I could see it on every stone on its dilapidated exterior, in every shadowy corner of its vast interior. It's as if the entire structure was on the brink of collapse, as if the house itself was a living, sentient being bound by the fate of its master. The disease of Lady Madeline Usher, Roderick's sister, had long baffled the skills of her physicians. She was scarcely visible during my stay, passing through the remote portions of the house, like a shadow, silent and pale, a living corpse. One evening, Roderick informed me abruptly that the Lady Madeline was no more. Though her death was sudden, it was not unexpected. And his reaction was one of strange calmness, of resignation with the inevitable. He then informed me of his intentions of preserving the corpse in the house for a fortnight. And now, given the unusual nature of Madeline's death, the obtrusive and eager inquiries on part of her medical attendants, and the exposed and remote nature of the burial ground of the family, I had no desire to oppose what I regarded as, at best, a harmless and by no means unnatural precaution. So, together, we lowered her body into a vault beneath the mansion. We partly unscrewed the lid of the coffin and gazed upon her face. We rescrewed and replaced the lid of the coffin, and having sealed the iron door, made our way back to the scarcely less gloomy apartments of the upper portions of the house. Days passed, and Roderick's demeanor grew more disturbed. He wandered the halls aimlessly, his eyes wide with fear. He spoke of sounds and strange noises that echoed through the mansion, whispers and footfalls that had no origin. It seemed the storm that gathered outside the house was a reflection of his inner turmoil. "You must not, shall not behold this," I said, shuddering as I pulled Usher away from the window. "Here, let us close the window. The air is dangerous to you now. Let me read to you one of your favorite novels to pass this terrible night." I picked up the antique volume, Mad and Trist by Sir Lancelot Cannon. And as I read, I suddenly noticed a distant, dull sound, an exact echo of the tales described, cracking and ripping. Roderick's demeanor had not changed. He stood facing the door, Usher rigid and shuddering under. We put her living in the tomb. Now she comes, her struggles, her heartbeat, her footsteps on the stairs. He leaped up, shrieking, "Madman! I tell you that she now stands at the door." As if by spell, the door swung open, and there stood the blood-stained, emaciated figure of Madeline Usher. For a moment, she remained trembling and reeling to and fro upon the threshold, and then fell heavily inward upon her brother, and in her violent and now final death agonies, bore him to the floor, a corpse. Horrified, I fled the mansion, and as I crossed the short causeway, a wild light flashed. The blood-red moon showed through a fissure in the house of Usher, and as the walls crumbled, it let out a tumultuous roar, and fell sullenly and silently upon itself, as fell the final fragments of the house of Usher.
Bye.